experience that I once was able to provide at, public events and expand online. And so we have an awesome panel of experts. I'm really excited about this conversation. Like I said, I am also taking notes because I have learned so much from these leaders between yesterday and today. And this panel is going to continue that. I'm interested in learning more about how to make that online experience more personal. And we are going to have this conversation led by someone I know and love. She is an entrepreneur. She's a marketing expert. She's worked with so many small businesses locally. And she's also worked with some of our FIU departments, like some of us, we need the help. And I thought she would be the perfect person to lead this conversation. I really wanted to find someone who could represent you in the moderator seat, right? Someone who could ask the questions that you're thinking, that you're feeling about what it would take to, give my South Florida, Miami feel on my platforms. And I thought that Michelle would be the perfect person to lead this conversation. We've worked together, I'm going to say for 3 years now. So I think it's been about 3 years. And she has been such a light to the community, such a light to so many of our small businesses. And, if any of you have worked with Michelle, put it in the chat to testify, such positive energy. And it's something we definitely need during this time. And I'm so grateful for your time, Michelle. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and from learning from you and the panelists. I am going to step back, let you lead, so I can become a student with the rest of the participants. Wait, I think, okay, there you go.
Thank you. Oh, that was a very beautiful tribute to me. I'm very touched. Like Anna said, I've been working with Startup FIU and different FIU departments for over like 3 or 4 years now, working on their social media and their online presence in general. And no secret to anyone, this year has been a very difficult year in terms of translating a lot of in-person departments to online and how to keep that experience, that in-person experience that most people are used to, and translating it to online. We have an amazing panel today, and I wanted to give each person a chance to introduce themselves. And if we can start with Dana, who is a Senior Account Director at RBB Communications and founder of Miami Food Porn.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
So as Michelle mentioned, my name is Dana Rosansky. I work full-time for a Miami-based integrated PR and marketing firm called RBB, where I have the chance to work with national and global brands, helping them get press, work with influencers, do events. And then I have a personal passion for the food and beverage space. So I also have my own food blog, which is called Miami Food Porn. And that's sort of my creative outlet, but definitely you'll see as we chat through some of the questions, there are synergies between both. So looking forward to chatting with you.
Awesome. And Daniel, manager at On-Premise Hospitality.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. My name is Daniel Allen. I've had about 15 years in the wine and spirits industry, originally from a culinary background, and made a life transition many years ago into wine and spirits. I work for a company, an experiential marketing company called Inspira, and we're the exclusive restaurant and hotel marketing arm of Diageo, which is one of the worldwide leaders in alcohol production, with some major legacy brands around the world. And I manage the state of Florida for their influencing of restaurants and hotels, gaining market share, understanding the business, adapting to the new kind of dynamic, the new climate of what the restaurant industry looks like, and working with our distributor partners to help the restaurants and hotels really find a new way of going to business while presenting our brands.
Awesome. Alexis, CEO of Social Exchange Miami. Oh, I think you might be muted.
All right. Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexis Brown. I'm the founder of Social Exchange. We are an event agency that curates experiences that specialize for professionals of color or anything under the African diaspora. I'm also the founder of Black Pepper Food Festival, which is South Florida's first festival to celebrate all the food and restaurants in South Florida that are Black owned. We had our first festival last year. This year, of course, it did not happen due to COVID, but we look forward to 2021 to bringing that back.
I look forward to that as well. Aki, the marketing and branding creative professional.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so yeah, my name is Akeem Smythe. I was born and raised in Miami. I previously did events through Inga Company Miami, which catered towards like creative professionals in the Wynwood Design District area. Then I started working for the supplier side in the food and beverage industry. So I worked for Southern Glacier for a little bit. Now I just recently moved closer to the supplier side. So I actually work for Brown Forman. I'm actually talking to you guys from Jersey. So I'm the off-premise key account manager in New Jersey for Brown Forman. So Brown Forman, we have brands such as Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Gentleman Jack, Corbel, etc. And in our industry, we definitely had to pivot, whether it's from the distributor side or from the supplier side. So I definitely want to, just learn from you guys, as well as like give you some gems that we've had to use, in our industry to sort of, push profits really.
Awesome. So I kind of want to open up the panel by asking everyone, basically in 2020, it has changed every aspect of our lives, right? From the way we work to the way we interact with one another. So one thing I wanted to ask is, what are some of the changes we see in customer behavior due to the pandemic? And what do you think will stick around after the pandemic is over, hopefully very soon?
I can start. So I mean, in our industry, I think the number one thing is cultivating trust with the consumer. So, in the alcohol industry, it's a 3-tier distribution. So us as Brown Forman, we can't do anything to sell alcohol directly to the consumer. So it's really our role, whether it's on-premise, which is like a restaurant or bar, or off-premise, to really give them the tools. And one thing that we've seen like through our data is just customers were feeling, unsure. So I know when I focus on-premises accounts, I had to sort of let my accounts know like cleanliness is a new marketing tool. So, you need to show on your social media platforms that you guys have a 5 or 10 step plan on how you guys are maintaining cleanliness. If you guys are doing a carry out, even something as simple as putting the sticker over the bag to ensure like that type of trust. Those are definitely tools that we've had to implement and sort of reinforce to our on-premise, when I was sort of more in that role, accounts, to just sort of let them know that it's all about the customer, really trying to build that trust and security, because they have heavy concerns in regards to their safety with everything going on with COVID.
From a different perspective, if I can add to that, and I agree with everything he said wholeheartedly from the alcohol perspective as well, from a distributor side, but from customer, behaviors, definitely everybody has become a little bit more cost conscious. They are looking for different options. Everybody was stuck at home for quite a while, and I think from a wine and spirits perspective, everybody realized martinis really don't cost $25 in Miami at a restaurant.
Right.
And people are looking, people are buying different, there are categories of growth that we're seeing in retail. Retail has obviously seen a gigantic spike when the restaurants closed, because nobody thought they were going to be able to get their alcohol. And people's buying patterns changed, where we're seeing spikes of wine over $20 a bottle that we haven't seen in years. It's been like a $10 to $12, $15 price point where the most growth was, but we're also seeing growth in like the economy category, the large format bottles of wine, box wine, just categories that we haven't seen growth in 15 years. And I think that'll stabilize. It's kind of stabilized already, but people have just become more cost conscious, understanding that they can drink at home with their friends a little bit more often and instead of going out. And I don't think that'll change. I think people are like to be around people again. And I think everyone's going to go back out to the restaurants, but I think they're looking at things a little bit differently. And restaurants have to take cost into consideration. They have to take variety into consideration. And a lot of that I think is here to stay.
Okay.
To piggyback on Daniel, definitely cost. I think creativity. I think just really thinking outside of the box in regards to experience. People will be willing to pay, but they want to make sure they're getting a good experience and good value for their dollar. And the simple things that people used to pay a lot of money for just because they're not going to do anymore. I also believe that a lot of people are supporting more local and are being very conscious about that, because understanding that as a local market, we have to support each other. So I definitely think that I do believe that. And I think also just brand loyalty. People that they're familiar with particular brands or particular companies, particular restaurants that they trust, that they love, that they feel home at. I think people will continue to support those as well, because in South Florida, we're all a family. So I think definitely that as well is something that I think hopefully will be to stay as well.
Yeah, I agree with what Alexis had said, and it's something that's been one of probably the silver linings of all this is the surge in supporting local. Seeing businesses in our own backyard kind of turning upside down has really rallied people to go above and beyond to support their local spot instead of a restaurant chain. But in terms of just consumers and customers and how we've adapted, everybody, because they haven't had a choice, has really had to adapt to technology and becoming more digital savvy. And I don't think that's going to change. I think it's here to stay. But after the pandemic, as people start to crave and seek out more of these physical experiences, it will be key for the food and beverage industry to kind of marry those two. So giving people the face-to-face that they want while not forgetting about the digital aspect, because that's really where the synergy is going to lie and where people can become more of these restaurant and brand loyalists, because they're not just coming into your restaurant and having a great experience. There's follow-up online, and there's more of that customer service and face-to-face that really creates these lasting relationships.
Awesome. And Lex, I wanted to ask you specifically, most in-person events this year obviously got canceled because of the pandemic. What are some of the more creative online experiences you've seen or participated in? And how can someone who's an entrepreneur that might not have the resources or the budget to recreate these really big, elaborate online events, recreate it for their followers at a more budget costly price point?
Yeah, so I'm definitely in that bucket of, I don't have sponsors. I don't have a lot of brand support. So I have to get very creative. One of the things that we did do that was not online, we started a drive-in movie series. I know on the food side, I saw, I think at FIU, at the fairgrounds, that they were doing a drive-through with different food trucks and things like that, which I thought was a very cool and safe way to get people out of the house, but also being safe. For online, for like our food festival, rather than doing that, we created a list of Black-owned restaurants in South Florida that people can go check out on their own or they can order from. I think creating content is really cool. Cooking classes, I think, are really, really great. If you're a restaurant, to kind of show people how they can, enjoy your culinary experience. And even if they're not directly buying your food, if they're having an experience from you when they're ready to purchase, I believe that they will come and purchase with you. So those are the few things that I've seen. I definitely love the cocktail classes as well as the culinary classes and discussions. I think have been really, really dope.
Awesome. Yeah, I've definitely participated in a couple of those online Instagram live cocktail classes, and it's amazing. I didn't realize I could make a mojito that tasted that good. Yeah. It's super easy. Didn't even know. Dana, I was wondering, how has the restaurant industry adapted to connect with customers digitally during this time?
Sure. So I've actually been really impressed by our restaurant industry and its resilience, resourcefulness, and really creativity. So while some places were already doing all the digital marketing and having this presence on social media, for other restaurants, it's been completely new, but everyone is really stepping up to the plate and being loud on the platform and communicating all the messages that are really key to their not just success, but to their survival. And that can be anything from curating creative takeout menus or special delivery options, using social media as a platform, but even more so connecting with influencers, local community members to help them spread the word. And it really has created this amazing sense of community. But to the point that, you know, talking about you making your own mojito, it's that these restaurants and brands are really peeling back the curtain and giving people more visibility into what they're doing, the people behind it, the chefs behind it, and making you feel like you're part of the family. So you want to participate, you want to bring that celebrity chef into your kitchen virtually to try out their recipes. So I've been impressed, and I continue to, you know, take notes on the creativity that I see from all these local businesses. It's been amazing.
Right. And there's one thing I wanted to tap into that you said. You mentioned influencers, like reaching out to different influencers. If I was a company that like is just starting off on social media and building my followership slowly, how would you recommend, like, as a strategy for me to reach out to various influencers to kind of like help me with that growth?
So there's a lot of different ways that companies approach it and a lot of different avenues to take. And some are as simple as a direct message on Instagram. You don't always have to have this big fancy PR agency backing you to connect you with influencers. Some of my best relationships or brand partnerships have actually just come as a message through the platform. If you do have budget and resources behind you and you want to formalize a partnership, obviously laying out what your campaign goals are, what support you really need, and selecting influencers, doing your research, vetting them, and sending them an email with what you're hoping to accomplish. And from what I've seen is that a lot of people are more giving and willing to really give back with their time and you know, their energy than they've ever been. This isn't a big brand knocking on your door. These are the people, again, in our backyards who have always been there for us. So I've seen the influencer community really reciprocate that, which has been nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, reaching out to influencers is probably the first most intimidating thing I think I ever did. And realizing once you reach out to a lot of people, it's not like you're reaching out to somebody's agent, you're reaching out to another human. And for the most part, most of them are kind enough to like reciprocate or message you back, and sometimes to work with you, which is awesome.
Yeah. And to that point, Michelle, just one quick follow-up on that is I think the key difference and what's going to get you a response is making it personal in some way, shape, or form. And that can be as simple as including my name. You'd be surprised by the amount of generic messages, generic emails, or even an email with the wrong name or just a space where the name should have been. So it's taking that extra 5 minutes to say, hey, Dana, I see you've been supporting local. We're a mom and pop, you know, family run business. We'd love for you to stop by or share some love.
And just to add something too to what Dana's saying, in regards to like influencers, I think your biggest influencer, especially at this time, is your customers. So I think having that awareness of the people that are, let's say, following you on social media and they're engaging in your content beyond the likes, but actually sharing it or saving it. And these are analytics that you can see easily on your platforms. To me, those are your first influencers. They already bought into you. They already believe in your food and what you do. And sometimes it's just reaching out to them and just letting them know, like, hey, I want to do like a campaign around Christmas. And I would love for you to just like, we'll send the food to your house. I would love for you to share it on your social media page. They already love your food. So it makes it that much easier versus sometimes, you know, like you said, it can be intimidating reaching out to people that you don't know that may have these platforms and you don't know how they're going to react. So I would definitely stick with your customers, like as your influencer.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The people that have hundreds and thousands of followers. Micro influencers are a thing. I'm one of them. And, you know, it's, I think that's something just different to look at. And again, people, you really want to deal with people that actually love your product. There's a natural foods, it's called Food Skincare, Donata Skin Food, and she was really big in the farmer's market. But while she was there, she began to build her social media platform, and thank God, because the farmers markets are closed. But she came up with an ambassador program of people that already buy her product, and she gave them like quick insiders or like first dibs on certain products that people really love. So you can get really creative with people that currently already buy and support your product, because if they share a simple share, someone else is going to see it and another person is going to see it. And so if you don't have large budgets, you don't have to go for the people that have 100, 200,000 followers or have the K behind, because an influencer is somebody who has influence on other people. And so everyone has some type of influence. So if they're sharing, shareable content is always really great, and just different giveaways and different customer rewards as well is a great alternative as well, into the influencer side.
Awesome. And you guys actually touched on my next question, which is basically about analytics, right? So numbers can be very scary to people who have a little bit of adversity towards math. And one thing I wanted to know, like, how do you measure truly if your customers are satisfied? Like, how do you, like, you could have an idea of like, okay, I think my customers are satisfied, but how do you actually measure something like that?
Follow-up surveys are always great. That's actually what I'm doing now. We have a new happy hour series at an outdoor event space, and it's a new space, so there's a lot of growing pains, especially with COVID and things like that. So just sending out surveys, having like a place where people can rate their, if they're coming in or even if online, they can rate their experience. That's a very simple way. And of course, one-on-one contact to ask people, how did they enjoy a simple follow-up text message. There's different ways. And usually as people are purchasing things, if you're gaining emails and cell phone numbers, you have a way to contact them to follow up, which is going to be key, because if Instagram ever shuts down, okay, you have now cell phone numbers and emails where you can follow up and email people different things. And then after you follow up with them on surveys and their experience, you can always send them coupons and things like that as well to be able to come back and support your business.
Awesome. That's an awesome insight. And Daniel, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, but from my perspective is a little different. So I'm in a very forward-facing consultative service. Like I'm in the people business, right? So my customers are Diageo. My customers are the restaurant owners, bar owners, hotel owners. And so there's not a true number analytical way to truly judge that. But being so relationship based, we have decided to invest 14 people across Florida to focus solely in the on-premise world right now during a pandemic, where most suppliers have pulled back. They've taken it easy a little bit. They're focusing their efforts in other channels like retail and chain business. And we're taking this time to invest in the relationships and the trust when kind of nobody else is there. And
right.
For us to put 14 people in Florida right now is unheard of from a supplier, a alcoholic beverage supplier perspective. And so we kind of judge it from our personal reactions, how accounts relate to us, how we're providing a service to them. If they're having an event, if they're looking for support, if they're looking for a way to engage their customer, if they're calling me, I know I'm doing my job. And I know it's hard to quantify that number, but you see the result in their sales. So
right.
That's how we can kind of justify it. Are we doing our jobs properly for our partners at Diageo? Are those relationships are resulting in upward sales? And it's hard to measure that number, but if I can walk into an account, if I can walk into a bar and see my brands represented from a marketing perspective, banners on the walls, coasters on the tables, tents outside, I'm doing my marketing job correctly versus somebody else. And that's how I can capture if my team is doing their job properly. If none of that's there and their sales are down, there's nowhere for me to challenge the consultants. But if the sales aren't doing that well, but all of that is in place, that's a win. They're doing the best of their job possible to capture the relationship and the trust of that partner. Because I think we all know bar managers, hotel managers are moving around constantly. and you never know
Right.
where they're gonna end up. And with, unfortunately, restaurants closing and opening pretty frequently right now, um, all we have in this industry is trust. So hopefully when they go to their new bar, they remember me or my team.
Right. Right. And Dana, what about you? How would you measure customer experience or satisfaction?
Sure. So I think that a lot of that information is out there. Whether or not the F&B industry and restaurant owners are looking for it or paying attention to it is another story. But you can really gauge customer sentiment online if you look at the engagement, if you look at what people are saying. But it really goes one step further than just reacting and looking what people are saying who are either probably overjoyed or pissed off. I think asking people for their opinion and really just seeking out the information is a step that everyone should be taking. And it could be more formal, like Alexis said, with surveys, but it can also be very turnkey and quick. So Instagram has rolled out a lot of very simple features like the poll or the ask a question, which are great tools. And what's nice about it is it doesn't take up anyone's time. People can do it while multitasking. They can click, are they happy? What do they want to see more of? What do they want to see less of? So really simple tactics like that on social media are a good way to understand what your consumers are feeling and thinking. And I would say gut check frequently, because people's opinions can change. Someone can have a negative opinion that you want to get on top of before it becomes a real issue. And the last thing to add is that it's always a great practice to incentivize people for feedback when possible. It doesn't have to be anything major, but it might just give them that kick that they need to take the 5 seconds out of their day to give you some feedback.
Right. I mean, one thing you mentioned was like the different feedback that we're getting online. You mentioned Instagram, but with so many sources for feedback now, it's no longer just like on your website or, you know, in a newspaper. It's on Yelp, it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on the comment sections of your website if you're writing blogs and content. Like, how would you suggest an entrepreneur who's wearing many hats to manage like looking at all that type of feedback and gathering it together to really get an understanding of how they're doing with their customers?
Great question. So I think it really depends what stage you're at in your business, but I usually tell people to focus on what they're great at and bring in help for things like that. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to really hustle all the business aspects of, say, a new restaurant, bring in some young, savvy talent who can manage your social media, who can scour through Yelp and pull out anything that needs to be flagged, or someone who's very happy and, you know, reach out and send them a gift card. That's not something that an entrepreneur should necessarily be getting into the weeds with. And there's a lot of great young talent, you know, FIU students and people who would love the opportunity, even with an internship. And for them, it's probably second nature. So focus on the business side and have support with things like that.
Awesome. Aki, one thing I wanted to ask you was businesses, like it's no longer just enough to be online, right? You have to have a brand personality. It has to be uniform and unique, whether you're in their actual store or if you're visiting them online on their Instagram or Facebook, right? How would you, what advice would you give entrepreneurs to translate that brand that they're known for from like in-person interactions to online?
Yeah, I mean, so I think like on a brand perspective, it doesn't really matter the platform. Like your brand is like your mission, your brand is your values, your brand is what you bring to your customers. So whether it's online or offline, those are just platforms that help sort of like push that narrative. So for instance, I mean, we've all seen like Ben and Jerry, for instance. This is an ice cream company. They sell ice cream. Like, we've all had ice cream food trucks, but as a brand, they've made sure that they doubled down when it came to whether it was Black Lives Matter or white supremacy or whatever social justice issues were going on. And they sort of stood in that. And so I think, you know, the online and the offline, those are, if, for instance, if you're a bar or a restaurant, you're known for having great customer service, a great customer experience. When people are there, they feel welcome. Well, then that means like when you're on your online platforms, maybe like having like a YouTube channel where you're showing people like the way that you make food. Just making sure that, back to what Dana was saying, making sure you have a good team. So you're the person that just cooks and prepares the food, but you get a really good videographer, you get a really good social media person, and they sort of handle that. And they can have that same experience of, having the food, whether it's at the restaurant or replicating it at home. So I think when it comes to like branding and using online and offline, you have to really have a core understanding of like what your vision is, what your mission is, where you stand, and how you sort of position yourself different from the competition. And I think like Ben and Jerry, it just sort of came to mind as sort of like a great case study of like, this is just ice cream, but they've met people digitally, whether it's like through social media, based on like the issues that they care most about.
Right. I mean, one thing you touched on a little bit, especially like within this year, it's been a very political year. There's been a lot of like social activism and things going on just generally in our society. And we've been seeing that many different companies have come and they made it part of their brand to showcase the values of that company, whether they support something or they don't support something. In general, how do you feel about having more of that's incorporated into brands, like more people showcasing their values, showcasing like who they support, and being more part of social activism? No one asked Ben and Jerry's to be part of like the Black Lives Matter movement. They just decided to do it because they thought it was part of their values.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to talk from authentic voice. That's the number one thing. So like Ben and Jerry's didn't just show up after what happened with George Floyd. They've been talking about decriminalized marijuana and, what people have had to go through, and how people are making millions of dollars off of the same drug that's having people criminalized and in jail. So I think, again, it goes back into like, what's your mission? What are your core values that you bring? And then how do you sort of personify that? So if you haven't shown that and then you just all of a sudden stand up for something, people can really sense authenticity or the lack of, and they will roast you, whether it's like on social media, whether it's through Google reviews, because it's not something that you're used to doing. So I think it really goes back into, if you're a food or a restaurant that really personifies like healthiness, and people having healthy options of eating, maybe partnering with a trainer on a social media platform where they can take over your social media platform, or people can join every Friday for a yoga session or meditation or something like that, because that's what you've put down as something that's important to you. That's your mission. That's what you want to bring to the table. So I think it has to come from authentic voice. And, that's just really going back to what your mission is, going back to your business plan, and then seeing how you can personify that, through the different platforms that we have.
Right. And one thing that I've personally seen a lot of like startup food companies have issues with is when like I'm in front of your face at a farmer's market, they could sell me on anything. Like, I've had people sell me on beets. I hate beets, but when they give me their food, it's delicious. But there's always an issue of trying to translate that same voice, that same storytelling that they give me at that farmer's market to online. So how would you suggest kind of like owning your own story online and still having that captivating, like emotional piece to it? Dana, I actually wanted to ask you that question.
Oh, how to keep, the energy and the love, whether
Yes.
it's physical or virtual. I think, and that's one of the things that I see as being a takeaway from all of this, is that you have to have both. So people can't have that same energy and love forever virtually. I know we've all experienced some sort of a Zoom fatigue, but it's about constantly innovating and making it feel more personal, more connected. I personally like the more boutique experiences. So it almost feels like you're getting that in-person takeaway, but it's not hundreds and hundreds of faces on a Zoom where you're hiding your face, you're doing a million things. So the first answer is, if you're going to keep it virtual, kind of make it as personal and intimate as you possibly can. And then as people start to get more comfortable with going out and, you know, having that face-to-face, be aware of the digital extension and also be aware of everyone's comfort level. I think it's going to take time for things to bounce back, and don't just jump in with both feet. I would say stay virtual while as we kind of move into the physical world, and that marriage will be successful.
Yeah, I definitely think it's really important to stay, or to not to stay virtual, but also to continue to get data, to get emails, to get cell numbers, because we don't know what 2021 has to hold. We hope that things are going to open up. We hope that things are going to get better, but there's a possibility that there may be another spike, or there may be, I mean, they're starting to do curfews already, right? So
Right.
when time and spaces open up, when the iron is hot, you have to strike. But again, remember that you have to build your digital platform. You have to build your off-premise or off non-person experience, because again, we don't know what the future has to hold, and we all want to be positive, but the reality is that we have to be prepared either way, because our businesses have to continue. So I think as time and as things open slowly but surely, always remember that moment when everything closed down and what that felt like, because if you forget, when it happens again, you're going to be in the same space. So I think this time is a great time for businesses to really take a step back and to look at what I was lacking. If it was, you know, making sure that I was fiscally straight with my taxes, if, you know, I wasn't able to, you know, get PPP loans or get other things because my business side wasn't straight, or my marketing efforts online were non-existent, you know, all those things that were in a deficit, to continue to work on those to make yourself a better business overall. Because even if everything opens up and it's great, if you continue to work on it, it makes your business even better than what it was before.
Right. Right.
I was just gonna add real quick, just to like what Alexis is saying, is like you can't be all things to everybody. So I think it goes back to like really knowing your customers. I know with social media, sometimes people could just be like, okay, I just got to be on social media, but it's like, where are my customers? So if you're in downtown or in Brickell and you're used to having a lot of professionals, maybe Instagram isn't the best platform. Maybe it's a LinkedIn. Maybe you should have a LinkedIn business page, and really be able to amplify your voice and your message there. And back to, you know, what everyone's been talking about, like people want to support local, so that's where you can sort of let that case be known and let more of these professionals know what your journey is going through. If you're dealing with a younger audience that's more tech savvy, through text messages specifically, there's like an app called Community app where you're able to just text people directly, and so you can talk about lunch specials that you have going on for the week, or, you know, your dessert of the day or whatnot. So I think it really goes back to like knowing your customers and researching. Like there's so much information on the internet. You don't have to know everything about your customers, but you can sort of be like, hey, I see that I have a lot of professionals. They seem to be in this type of age group. Um, what other stuff do they, what other platforms do they usually go on? You know what I mean? They're probably not going to be the TikTok generation. They're going to be more like the LinkedIn and Facebook. So.
Right. And I think one thing that you both kind of like touched upon was like keep testing. Like it might not work the first time, but like keep trying on different platforms, try different methods. It's okay not to get it right out of the gate. I think there's a false narrative out there that like you have to be perfect the moment you get on social media and you start trying to brand. You're going to change the way you post, you're going to change the way your website looks, the way it sounds, and it's okay that you kind of go through a generation of like different modifications and changes until you find what works for you.
And something to add to that, Michelle, is there's more of this appreciation for self-deprecating social media posts, people who acknowledge that they're not perfect about it. It's becoming less and less polished and more organic. And, you know, it's really quite an interesting shift from before where it had to be picture perfect. And I think that's why TikTok has become such a sensation, is it's really raw. So that should give, you know, restaurant owners or people who don't feel as comfortable a little bit of a vote of confidence that you're in good company and people appreciate the fact that everyone's just trying their best.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially during this year, I think there's been a lot of leeway from customers about like, hey, it's okay if it doesn't look completely polished, or like it's you with your iPhone taking a photo. No one's expecting you to have a photographer in your house taking pictures of your food right now.
And you can get some really good pictures on your iPhone too, you know.
Yeah.
And androids. Yeah.
There's many apps out there right now can make it look like you have like the best photographer in your home taking photos. Right? There's definitely ways to manipulate it. I've asked my 13-year-old cousin to help me like edit my photos because she's way better at it than I am. And one thing more, so we kind of talked a little bit about it, but I kind of want to go into more about it is how do restaurants stay top of mind with their customers while continue to generate sales for those who don't feel comfortable dining out right now?
Yeah, I thought that was I think that's a really good question. And I really kind of thought about it for a minute and put some, I think, great ideas down. And I think the restaurant hotel industry is probably some of the most resilient, hardworking people anywhere. And when the pandemic, hit, obviously restaurants were shut down except for like delivery and to go. And you either adapted or you died. And unfortunately, some people couldn't, and that's horrible. Great business owners, but the ones that were able to really adapted, they were quick to offer new outdoor dining options if possible. Converting parking lots. I mean, I don't want to sit in a parking lot, but it gives people the option, right? Or renovating their restaurants to be more compelling to a different type of a customer base if they had that money available. But a lot of restaurants, enhance their social media. They enhance, and we've talked about this a little bit already through the conversation. Have gotten involved in more delivery options than they ever did before. Restaurants that never did delivery, that was their only option to sign up for a Grubhub or Uber or do their own. And the ones that already had those options in place kind of already had that. The ones that had to figure it out, took a little bit longer, but they were adapting to stay top of mind. Restaurants were advertising in non-traditional media that they hadn't been advertising in before to find a new customer base. They were resilient. They're really just trying their best to stay alive and not just to stay open, but to feed the people that work there and take care of their family. And so restaurants, I think some of these stories hit the news where restaurants were selling, $20 gift cards that in 6 months would be worth $50 because they were trying to bring in revenue to the restaurant. People didn't want to eat out, but they knew in 6 months it'll be worth a little bit more to help pay their bills and stay open. When the pandemic hit, restaurants were doing the virtual wine dinners, the virtual wine tastings, the liquor stores were doing the same thing just to kind of spark sale. And they enhanced their to-go business. They enhanced their dinner packages at home, creating boxes of food. There's a great restaurant down the street from me that was basically creating your make it at home pizza in a box, right? So here's the dough, here's the stuff to do at home with your kids, and everybody is interactive at home in that environment that they never had before, but it brought the business minorly to the restaurant, but it created that atmosphere at home. And you're like, wow, this restaurant thought of me and my family, created this awesome option. And when everything's back and running, we're definitely going to that pizza place.
Right.
Restaurants coming to you. Unfortunately, two dear friends had to close their restaurant in Coral Gables after 20 years in business. And they tried for a long time, but what they started doing was taking their restaurant to you, and they kind of turned it into a catering business, and they're bringing their meals to your home, creating like an in-home, not necessarily an in-home chef service, but more of an in-home dining experience rather than just picking up your food from Grubhub in styrofoam containers, more presentable options. And they may or may not get back on their feet, but they're trying, right? And trying to just spark that economic stimulus for everybody, so everybody's working and making money. And I think they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job.
Right. Dana, did you have anything to add?
So you touched upon a lot of the things that I've experienced and a lot of the things that I really give the restaurant industry kudos for doing. And I've personally done, the pizza making, the pasta making, I've rolled my own sushi. And in addition to it being a fun thing to do where, you can't really go out and enjoy the way that you're used to, it creates more of an emotional connection with these businesses. So yes, they're generating revenue, but I now have an experience or a memory with them that is beyond transactional. I didn't just order through Uber Eats, get the pizza and move on, because there's so many great places to eat in this city. But when you're able to create an experience or a memory with customers, to Daniel's point again, you're going to go eat there when you can. So I think it's been amazing to see what everyone's doing, and also seeing how the restaurant community has come together to collaborate with one another. So chefs working on dinner experiences together, or a bar that's creating cocktails to go alongside another restaurant. So they're really teaming up, putting their heads together and recognizing that the power in numbers is going to benefit everybody. So those are just some additions that I had.
And I think just like to add, especially what Daniel was saying, it's important to understand why people buy. And so like people love a story, a comeback story. People love people that are resilient. Like the first thing when he said resilience, I was thinking like Last Dance, the MJ documentary, and like people love that type of. I mean, this guy hasn't played in God knows how many years, but like they love the story of like a champion and someone that came from nothing to having something. So I think that's something that small business owners, specifically during the pandemic, like if you obviously not exploiting it, but showing that vulnerability of like, hey, we've been around. We really would enjoy your support. It hasn't been easy, but you know what? We're here to serve our community. Like people, and it goes to what Dana's saying, it creates an emotional buy, right? And so I'm not even there because of the product. I knew it took 45 minutes because you're understaffed at the restaurant. I know, you know, the ingredients aren't probably the same ingredients that you got before, but like I wanted to support, and it's going to be front of mind because that emotional purchase versus like I just bought it because I know they have the best steak tartare. Like I think it's like creating why people buy, and just talking from like a bigger brand part. Like I think that's key for like Jack Daniel's. This is $1 billion company under Brown Foreman, but we really keep it simple in regards to it's Jack Daniel's. It's a guy. There's like a face to the brand. He's just your average person, and so I think that's sort of based off of Lynchburg, which is like a small town. So I think those are like sort of things that strategies that small businesses could sort of learn, where it's just like showing that vulnerability and really focusing on that emotional purchase. And then that'll keep you really front of mind with your consumers and your customers.
Yeah. And this last question before we open up for Q&A would be like, what advice do you have for small business owners as they continue to adapt their customer experience model online? Daniel, I'd like to start with you.
I'm going to divert to somebody else really quickly. Sorry.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I've mentioned some of these points, but it can't hurt to reiterate. I would say keep the energy and the momentum that you've built online during this time and continue to fuel it, and don't let it go to the back burner once you have more in-person options. I think that's going to continue to be a real selling point for the business, another revenue generator, and another way to connect with customers. So don't let that fall by the wayside once things come back to some sense of normalcy. And the other piece of advice is to continue to hone in on the human connection, get to know your customers, engage with them online, ask them for feedback, show them that you appreciate their support during this time. I mean, I've gotten so much takeout with a little note that says, thanks for supporting our business. And it's such a small touch that I remember. So think about the customer as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say like number one is research. Like I'm always into that. So like Googling, remember like you're a customer, you're someone's consumer as well. So I think sometimes having that self-awareness of like, like what makes me purchase this alcohol brand specifically, or what makes me support this small gym or yoga or cycling place, right? So I think like sort of understanding your buying patterns, and maybe it's because they don't have the newest equipment or the best equipment or have the best hours. However, the story of the person and how he started, maybe it was like first generation and you can relate to that story. So I think like definitely like researching, I think being aware of you as a consumer. And then I would say lastly, just really just understanding like you're gonna make mistakes. Like there's perfection is not the goal, but executing and then sort of learning is the goal. And so as long as you executed, you know, after you did some research and you saw like, oh, this responded well online, or this didn't respond as well,
Right.
where do I sort of pivot a little bit? So yeah, those will be my steps.
Awesome. Thank you. Daniel, are you ready?
Yeah, I mean, just to
Yeah.
add, I think it's just the restaurants and the small businesses just need to continue listening to their customers and understanding their dynamic of whatever their business is and adapting to that geography. What it was 6 months ago may or may not ever come back. Some restaurants are looking at their own business model and saying, maybe I can't sell $40 pieces of fish anymore. You know, maybe I don't have that customer. A lot of restaurants are closing down because they're in areas of corporate offices and nobody's going to those corporate offices anymore because everybody's working from home. So their business and dinner business is shot. And so restaurants are really kind of adapting their menus and thinking out, I hate to say thinking outside the box, but thinking outside the box and taking that menu and scaling it down and making their menus more affordable. They're purchasing more affordable. They might not have as high of a profit margin, but it's better than zero.
Right. Right. Alexis?
Yeah. Would you go to repeat the question? Because we were breaking up a little bit. So I heard all the answers, but I want to make sure I understand the question before I start going.
Yeah, no problem. What advice would you give to small business owners as they continue to adapt their customer experience model for online?
Continue to be innovative, to always continue to think outside of the box, but also to think about what's next. For a lot of people, they have to see not just right now, but also the future, to see where the trends are going, the direction that things are going, to what Aki said as well, research. I think just understanding your market, understanding your competitors, understanding what other people are doing. And if it's working for them, maybe it may work for you, or you can take a tweak to it. For some people, they don't have a blueprint or people that they can look at and things of that sort, which again, causes for just additional research and creativity and talking to your customers, seeing what they like, what they don't like. And again, right now, the biggest word is just pivoting. And there's no one way to pivot, but I think all the learning lessons that everyone has learned during this pandemic, hopefully they continue to work on the things that they struggled at in regards to this time. So hopefully in the future, it will allow them to have additional streams of revenue within their business, as well as to continue to grow.
Right. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So we're going to open it up for Q&A right now. I see we have a couple already. So Betsy is asking, I'm interested in building a relationship/partnership with a liquor company. A liquor company that would be compatible with our edible boozy bites, which is edible cookie doughs. We offer convenient eating with individual pieces of dough sold in bulk bites of 4 pieces grab-and-go packages. What would be the best way to go about this? And do you have any suggestions or places to reach out to about this?
So I work with a liqueur called Dorda, so feel free to message me after the session and we can talk about it.
Awesome. Ian asked, what would you suggest as a way of compensating for the loss of in-store activities like sampling and tasting events? Groceries really depend on those tasting, which are all canceled now.
Sorry, that has tech difficulty. An option for tasting, which I know one of the biggest things is you're getting people that you normally don't get. But if you do have a prior customer base, having packages that maybe you can mail at home, or again, if you're doing cooking classes or different sampling classes, people can go buy the ingredients and things like that and do it at home. It's a small alternative. And then also people I've seen are starting to do like their own pop-ups in certain places. So if there's places that are available within the community that you can do your own pop-up thing, if you have a food truck or something of that sort, that could be an alternative. But that is a very difficult struggle. I don't think there's anything directly going to be the same type of experience as that, but those are just a few thoughts.
I would say too, like, you know, part of what taste is important about tastings. So, for instance, like, obviously we can't do tastings now, but it's educating the customer. You know, for the liquor industry, it's educating them about the brand, the origins of the brand, what it stands for, etc. So, I think again, taking offline premise online, and back to what Alexis was saying in regards to having like what is emails or something, sending out sort of like pamphlets or flyers, or maybe on your Instagram, putting posts informing people about what you're sampling, whether it's the origins, you know, of where it's made from, whether it's the recipe. I think a huge part of sampling is educating people, and this time more than ever, like people want to learn. Like people are, I'm taking courses on Coursera just to like learn how to do graphic design now, and like learning stuff on stocks. Like people just want to learn. So I think that aspect of sampling can be transferable to like a digital platform of just educating people.
Another question from Betsy is, with a very limited budget, almost close to zero, what are the best ways to reach my audience of women between the ages of 25 and 49?
Depending on what type of product it is, if it's something that you can sell to someone anywhere, one thing you can do is engage with people online, which is free, but just takes a lot of time. So say if you sell lipstick, and you can follow different popular lipstick hashtags and like people's posts that post things about lipstick, or comment or engage, things of that sort. Again, it's just a little bit more time consuming, but you know, if it's not budget, you don't have a budget to do other things, that's always a great option to engage with people in that demographic.
I also think micro influencers are more open to working in terms of trade. So if you can identify some people who align with your brand and who fall within that demographic group, then you can just offer to gift them. If they like it, they can feel free to share. And that way it's not a hard cost to you, but you're getting more hands and eyeballs on your product in an organic way.
Yes.
I would also say, back to like what Dana was saying in regards to incentivizing, like incentivize what you want. So the thing that sort of popped up in my head is trying to like collect data. And so if you have a giveaway on like the social media platform that you do the best on, and saying like, hey, you know, I just need everyone to enroll. Our goal is 100 signups. We're going to pick a winner from the signups and give them like a free meal. You know, if you incentivize and put some type of reward there, especially around this time where everyone is open to have anything that's free, I think it'll sort of help you reach that goal.
Awesome. I believe that was our last question. Thank you guys all for joining me on this panel and having such amazing conversation with me around experiential online marketing for the food and beverage businesses.
Thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. I learned a lot. And I will definitely also be reaching out to Dana. And definitely would love to hear about everyone's process. I've heard, like I said, I've heard about social exchange on social media. You know, I'm not young, but you know,
don't have to be young. You do not have to be young. We have a happy hour tonight. You should come.
Things that are happening, the hot happening things. And I've seen
shout out to Alexis real quick. Her events, social media, social exchange, follow them on.
Yes,
social media. They're amazing.
Everywhere. Despite the pandemic, I have seen social exchange everywhere. So congratulations, Alexis.
Thank you.
And Dana, you've been popular, as you can see in the chat section.
I paid them all.
Yes. So Daniel, Aki, thank you guys so much. I will say, here at Chaplin and FIU and Startup FIU, we have an extra love for the beverage side of the industry. I do consider myself lucky that I am surrounded by all of you, and I have the pleasure of being able to participate and partake in all of this good stuff. I can't wait for things to get back to normal so I can get back to that. But we are so grateful for your time, and I really want to say happy holidays. You know, this is not something that you had to do, but you volunteered yourself. It's not like we have some huge conference. This is not the traditional situation that you would experience at International University. This is more personal. So much has happened this year, and your willingness to provide your time and support to this community means a lot to us. And so we just really want to thank you. Thank you so much. Guys, have attendees, if you can join me in thanking this panel, I would really appreciate it. And panelists, if there's a way that you want to be reached or your social media, please feel free to add it in the chat section. Awesome. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
I know you're traveling, so I
And
really
great job, Michelle.
Yes.
Great job on moderating. You did an amazing job.
Awesome.